Hello, everybody. Welcome to Curry and Mitchell, from Watts to Brooklyn and all points in between. I'm Sheldon Curry here again with my very good friend James Mitchell, and we're going to take a look at the NFL following the Week 13 games. We're going to take a look at the playoff possibilities, I should say, and see who we think will get in and where they'll get in and who might reach the Super Bowl. So, brother, it's been a while, but this effectively commences our 2024 Curry and Mitchell podcast.
Right.
What's up? What's up?
Everything's good. Things are pretty nice. Beautiful day in the Carolinas. Can't complain. Yeah, man, it's heading into week 14. Things are getting tight.
Yeah, it's getting real.
Right.
Yeah. Let me do this. Let me kind of, for the listeners, let me kind of set the table a little bit, a real quick summary. I'll start with the AFC, and then we can jump to the NFC. So as we're heading into Week 14, the AFC looks like this. Miami Dolphins are the number one seed from the AFC East.
Right.
At 9-3, the 2 seed are the Baltimore Ravens at 9-3. They're leading the AFC North. The 3rd seed now is the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's the Kansas City Chiefs,
Right.
who are 8-4, tied with the Jaguars. But right now, if the playoffs were held today, Kansas City gets the 3rd seed because it beat Jacksonville head up.
Right.
And then the 4th seed would be, of course, Jacksonville. And those the top 4 seeds, as you know, all host playoff games, and in the wild card round, three of those 4 division winners host a playoff game, and then you add the 3 wild card teams. And presently in the AFC right now, we got Pittsburgh at 7-5. We got Indianapolis, Cleveland at 7-5. Indianapolis 75. That would round out the playoffs if the playoffs were held today.
Right.
And then Houston at 75 is on the outside looking in because of a tiebreaker. And then you got Denver 6-6. You got Cincinnati 6-6. Buffalo 6-6, only a game back.
Right.
So you want to take a stab at it? Which way you want to go with this?
Well, I don't know who's going to do what. Obviously, I wish I did. I'd be rich. I'd go to Vegas. But I'm thinking that with factoring in injuries and things like that, those that happen with the Jaguars, I think Houston might replace them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That,
yeah.
Depending on what happens, like I said, with the quarterback situation there. I don't know. I'm kind of betwixt and between and trying to figure out who's going to do what, and I don't have any real favorites in mind based on anything concrete at any rate,
Yeah, I think, let me jump in there with that. I don't disagree with you. I mean, none of us really know. But I do think that there are a couple of key things coming up. I think a lot of this is going to depend on, like you hit it when you said injuries, because of injuries, who's going to be available, the key players. I think, though, I guess we should start off with Miami and Baltimore, since right now they're tied at 9-3. Miami is deemed the 1 seed if the playoffs were held today because they're 6-2 in the conference and Baltimore is 6-3. But that's going to be rectified because Baltimore and Miami play later in the season. Right. So if they end up in a tie, whoever wins that game will have the tiebreaker between those 2 teams. I think they play New Year's Eve in Baltimore. So I think, for me, looking at the 2 teams, and I'll start with those 2, it looks like both of them, have some tough games. Miami has to play the Cowboys at home. They play at Baltimore, and then they close the season against the Bills. And though the Bills are 6-6, if you look at their point differential and what they've done the last 3 or 4 years, people still think they're a dangerous team.
Well, they already beat them this year too.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point. They beat them up really bad. I think it was like 48-20 or something like that.
Right. Wasn't even close. That's true.
And then the other 2 games that they play were the Jets. The Jets are tenacious defensively, but they can't score any points.
Right.
And then the Titans also compete, but again, so when you look at that schedule for Miami, it's not an easy schedule, but based on what they've done during the season, you could see them winning 3 or 4 of those games minimum.
True.
And so a lot of it, again, is going to depend on if they beat the Ravens head up. Going to the Ravens, though, the Ravens probably have a tougher schedule because every team that they play presently is 500 or better. They play the 6-6 Rams next Sunday. Then it's the 8-4 Jaguars, the 9-3 Niners. Both of those games are on the road. And then they come home to finish the season against 9-3 Miami and 7-5 Pittsburgh. And them and Pittsburgh are always in a brawl, being in the same division.
Yeah,
So
Pittsburgh beat them earlier this year.
And Pittsburgh beat them earlier this year. So, so one of the things in this case, when we look at this, it goes without saying, both teams control their own destiny. If Miami runs the table, they will be the AFC #1 seed. If Baltimore runs the table, they'll be the AFC #1 seed. And as looking at the schedule, neither one of them are likely to run the table, and both could still become #1 seeds. Anything you want to add to that?
No, not really. I think you summed that up perfectly.
And
it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, obviously.
Yeah. I will take a stab. I think the fact that Miami has 4 of their 5 remaining games at home gives them an edge. Baltimore has 3 of their 5 at home, and the only game Miami plays on the road is at Baltimore. So it's going to be real interesting, but probably I think Baltimore is the better team, but I think Miami might have the edge and an easier schedule, and that might be the difference. But you never know.
That's true.
You never know. And then I'd like to talk about the other 2 teams that are division leaders, and they're 8-4, Kansas City and Jacksonville. Both are game back of these 2. And I think it's a little surprising about Kansas City because they've dropped 3 of their last 5 games. And so they're kind of in an unfamiliar situation.
They are. They are. That takes us the first time since 2015 that they might not have a home game advantage.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. They think the last 16 games, maybe they played at home or on a neutral site or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's incredible.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Definitely in jeopardy right now, the way they've been stumbling and bumbling. So it's going to be interesting, man. But I think they're going to, their wise and pound foolish approach to personnel is come back to bite them a bit.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah. But anyway, we shall see, because they still have the magic man there, so anything's possible.
That gives them any edge that they're going to have.
It's unfair to put so much weight on him, but that's where it lies.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I would not count Kansas City out for that #1 seed though, because
not at all.
Their schedule. And again, you could argue, well, the way that they lost to Denver and they lost at Green Bay, both teams are now 6-6. So they're not the worst teams in the league, but these are the kind of teams Kansas City has beat in the past.
That's true.
It makes you wonder. But when you look at their schedule, they host the Bills next Sunday.
Right.
And then they play at New England. They host the Raiders. They host Cincinnati. And then they play at the Chargers. You could argue that the 2 toughest games that they'll have will be the Bengals and Bills, and they'll have them at home.
Right.
And then, so it is not beyond the realm that they could go 5-0. And I almost expect them at minimum to go 4-1 here. So again, when you go back to Miami and you go back to Jacksonville, Baltimore, depending on how they finish, I think Kansas City's in the mix. And then, go ahead.
I was going to say they're definitely in the mix, no question.
And then I was looking at Jacksonville's schedule. They probably have the easiest schedule of the 4 teams. But they start off tough. They play Cleveland, though Cleveland's beat up and they're playing with Joe Flacco at quarterback.
Right.
But the fact that now that Trevor Lawrence might not play, and if he plays, he might be banged up, that might equalize it a little bit. The game is in Cleveland. And Cleveland has that vaunted defense. So
they do. And I think DTR is expected to be back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think they put Flacco back on the taxi squad.
Oh, okay.
I think I saw that today somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, well then that lets you know what they thought about all that. So, because I was really wondering, man. It was like, do they think Flacco is going to be the guy to take them to the promised land?
I know.
And the only reason I thought that, not to digress, but the only reason I started wondering about that was because they went and started Flacco over P.J. Walker. And,
right.
And, and it was one thing for them to have Thompson Robinson over him, maybe because even though PJ is mobile, but I think DTR probably is a little bit more mobile, and a little younger,
a lot more accurate too.
a little more accurate. But when he brought in Flacco, it surprised me because PJ won a couple of starts earlier this year, and it kind of surprised me. And then that's what made me wonder: are they going to go with Flacco even when DTR comes back because he's so inexperienced? But you just answered that question, so yeah. And then back to Jacksonville. Then, of course, they play the Ravens 2 weeks from now. And so after that, though, it gets easier. Tampa Bay, Carolina, and Tennessee.
Right. They should win those 3 games.
Easy.
Right. But you never know.
Yeah.
I guess the toughest game in that group would probably be Tennessee, I would think.
Yeah. Tennessee, it's not going to be a gimme because they play them very tough.
Right.
But given what might be at stake, they might be battling. And and we've been, or at least I've been focusing on who gets the top seed because it's the only one that gets a bye now.
Right.
That's why that's even more important than in the past when the top 2 teams got byes.
Absolutely.
And everybody else has to play. But even getting the 2 seed is important because if the higher seeds win. If you are 2, you get to play that game at home. Right. Because if you are 3, you got to beat the 2 seed on the road, and then you got to go beat the 1 seed. So even that distinction is super important.
Oh, sure, it certainly is.
It's super important. So, anything you want to add to the top 4 seeds? No. I mean, that are presently top 4.
No, not really.
Yeah. I do think that maybe with the exception of Jacksonville, if Houston can catch them, these will be the top 4 seeds, independent of the order.
True.
I think Baltimore with a 2-game lead over Cleveland, Pittsburgh, I don't think they're going to get that up. I think Kansas City with a 2-game lead over Denver is not going to get that up. Miami is definitely not going to give up a 3-game lead over Buffalo. So I think the only team that's within a game is Houston and Indianapolis, so within a game of Jacksonville.
Right.
And with his injury and stuff, so which I know we're impressed by Houston. And Indianapolis played well without Richardson.
Right, they played very well. They went in with Gardner Minshew. And you have to give some kudos. I've seen people start to mention the coach should be a possible Coach of the Year candidate for the job he's doing there, given that they lost Richardson and the running back Taylor.
Right.
And they still found a way to win. And it's interesting that the implications that I hadn't thought about earlier, that his being the coach of the Colts right now, the implication that has with the Eagles. And we get something we can talk about later, some of their struggles offensively. He was the offensive coordinator last year.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't disagree that they've had sometimes it looks a little inconsistent with Philly, but just real quick, and I know we can get back to this when we get to the NFC, but I'm a little hesitant there because Philadelphia, at least going into the Frisco game, was averaging the same amount of points that they averaged last year.
It just looks different.
No, I understand, but at some point at the end of the day, points are points.
Right. That's true.
It's like, maybe they did it a little bit. I definitely think they ran the ball better last year.
Right.
They got off to a good running start this year, but it looked like in recent weeks it's been kind of sporadic. And it definitely was sporadic against the Niners.
Oh, man, that's true.
Yeah.
Almost non-existent.
Yeah. So let me throw. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I don't want to jump off like that. I just thought about this guy. Coming from the Eagles. Indianapolis. He's doing a pretty good job there now.
Yeah, Shane Steichen or something is his name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that. They've been pretty effective the last several weeks. They've been playing good ball, and they always play hard, like you said. So.
Well, I also think DeMeco Ryans has done a hell of a job because he had less to work with than Indianapolis did. I mean, because though Indianapolis only won 4 games last year, most people still felt like they had a better roster than Houston.
Of course they did.
So I don't want to go to sleep on DeMeco Ryans.
No, I think he's the hands-down candidate, in my opinion. If I was choosing somebody. But, I just heard this recently. He's starting to be touted,
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a couple of articles today. And guys were saying, hey, look at Indy. Anyway, we'll see what happens, how it shakes out. Yeah.
Well, let me throw this out before we jump into the NFC. So, given that Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Indianapolis are presently all 7-5, and they take up the 3 wild card spots, with Houston being also 7-5, but right now because of the conference tiebreakers. And then Denver and Buffalo and Cincinnati game back. So of those, 7 teams? If you had to take a guess, who do you think is going to get the 3 wild card spots? Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Indianapolis, Houston, Denver, Cincinnati, and Buffalo.
I'd have to say Buffalo.
I know, ain't it? It's tough.
It's kind of hard, man.
It is. No, it is. It's no automatics anywhere here.
No, they aren't Indy. No, that's true. Sentimentally, I like Houston.
Right.
But I don't know how realistic it is. What this schedule looks like going in the last 4 games.
And then they lost Tank Dell, and then they lost one that started off as a lineman a week before that. You start wondering if that's going to be too much to overcome.
At some point, that's true.
Yeah.
Cleveland's interesting because their offensive, unpredictability.
Right, I agree.
So, but they have as good a shot as any of the others. Guys to get one of those spots, I think, going forward. I don't think their record. I don't know if they play. Who they play next coming up? Cleveland. I forgot.
I don't have. I didn't.
You didn't have that? Okay.
No, but I do know that. I know one of the. Next week they play Jacksonville. I do know that.
Right.
And I believe they have at least another game in the division, and I think that's it's either against Cincinnati or Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's tough.
I want to say it's against Cincinnati. Because I know Cleveland's played Baltimore twice, and I think Cleveland's played Pittsburgh twice. So they got a game against Cincinnati, and they got a game against Jacksonville. So those 2 are the games that they have to play.
Right.
Yeah. It's a crapshoot. I think I agree with you with Buffalo only because of what they've done in the past.
Right.
And you would just think that they can find a way to win enough games to be one of those 3 wildcard teams. Because the 3 teams that are sitting right there have major questions. Pittsburgh, even though I know neither one of us are high on Kenny Pickett, now Trubisky is the starting quarterback. And, we know he's been, inconsistent. And then you already very eloquently spoke about Cleveland's inconsistency. Then to be fair to them, they've started 4 different quarterbacks this year.
That's right.
Because of injuries. And so you just don't know how that's going to work out. And the guy that they're going to now is a rookie. He's only had about 4 or 5 starts.
Sure.
And then, of course, Indianapolis, like you said, got Gardner Minshew. And they're playing without Jonathan Taylor.
Right.
So I don't know, man. And then Houston, like you say, Tank Dell, an offensive lineman, and then Cincinnati's playing with a backup quarterback.
Right. Unless he keeps playing like he played last night.
Right. And then you wonder about Denver. I know they've won 5 of their last 6.
Yeah. I think they dug too big a hole for themselves early on. I really do.
So, and then the last thing I'll say with the AFC, and I'm glad you brought that up because the whole is not the game for Denver necessarily. It's not the game that they're back. It's their conference record.
Right, exactly.
Right now they're 3-5 in the conference, and all the teams in front of them have winning records already in the conference.
Yeah.
So that already tells you, and that's the same problem Buffalo has though. Buffalo and Denver have the same record in the conference. So, so it means unless all these teams end up just falling apart and going like 8-9, and you end up 9-8, if you're Buffalo or Denver, you almost it looks like one or if they're gonna have to go at least 10-7.
Right.
Because I think if they get in that 9-8 and they're tied with another couple of teams, unless they beat them head up, that conference record could kill them. So that would be my one observation there.
Right.
So we'll see. Any other things about the AFC? Any other comments?
No. Other than I'm rooting for Houston.
Yeah, the sentimental favor. It'd be nice to see. That C.J. Stroud is playing lights out.
Man, unbelievable. Yeah.
All right, well, let's move to the NFC. A lot of people feel like that's a conference that is not as wide open as the AFC is, at least at the top.
Right.
So the summary will be the top seed presently is Philadelphia, 10-2 as they lead the NFC East. The 2 seed right now is the San Francisco 49ers at 9-3 as they lead the NFC West. The 3rd seed is Detroit, who's 9-3, leading the NFC North. And, of course, the 4th seed is the woe-begone Atlanta Falcons of the NFC South at 6-6.
Right.
So they will get that 4th seed no matter what their record or the winner of the division was.
Right.
Yeah. And then right now, Dallas is the 5 seed, and pretty much Dallas or Philly will be the 5th seed, whoever doesn't win the division.
True.
And then you got Minnesota at 6-6, Green Bay at 6-6, the Rams at 6-6, Seattle at 6-6, and then if you want to just throw them out there, Tampa Bay and New Orleans 5-7, both a game back of the wild card, but also a game back in their division. So, any observations? Where you think this is going to go?
I think the team that has the best chance of making it out of those last ones you mentioned would be New Orleans.
Okay.
Because of the lousy division they're in. I could see them possibly squeaking ahead of Atlanta. You never know. I think Seattle's in the worst spot. They lost some crucial games.
Yeah, they did.
The last couple of weeks that they had an opportunity to win against Dallas and the Rams. And I think the team they have a rough schedule coming up, and I don't know if they can overcome what's happened to them. Even though they're getting the Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota's in one of those spots right now.
Yeah, they're in the spot. They're getting Jefferson back this week, I understand.
Yeah.
So that should help Dobbs and the rest of them out quite a bit, but you never know. It's going to be tight. Like I said, I don't know, kind of up in the air on that one.
Yeah, and you have a right to be up in the air because if you take Minnesota and all that all the way down to New Orleans, 12 teams. 6 teams from 6 to 11. They're either 5-7 or 6-6. We're not talking about juggernauts. So the one thing I will add though to that is that of those teams, the Rams and Green Bay presently have 3-game winning streaks. And you made a good point about Seattle. Not only do they have a tough schedule left, but Seattle's behind the 8 ball because they got swept by the Rams. So if they end up in a tie with the Rams, they lose that tiebreaker. And I think Seattle's only 1-3 in their division right now, so that's going to be. And matter of fact, that's not going to even come into play because the Rams already is 4-1 in the division. So the worst that Rams can do is 4-2 in the division. So Seattle 3-3. So Seattle's kind of like where Buffalo and Denver is in the AFC. They're going to have to probably win at least 4 games so they don't end up in any of these tiebreakers.
Right. It's not likely they're going to do that, I don't think.
Yeah, and so
the schedule's too tough.
Yeah, schedule is tough. And then I will make a comment about New Orleans. I think where you were leaning, because it seems on paper outside of the quarterback, because neither one of us are big Derek Carr people, even though most people feel he's the best quarterback in that division. But, I'll tell you, New Orleans being a game back of Atlanta for the division and a game back of the 6-6 wild card teams, New Orleans is in a precarious position for a couple of reasons, and they're almost going to be like what we just mentioned about Seattle. New Orleans they got, if I'm not mistaken, I haven't looked this up. Maybe I should have looked it up. Didn't Atlanta sweep New Orleans?
I think so.
If they did, so that means effectively New Orleans would have to be ahead of Atlanta.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is New Orleans is only 2-5 in the conference. So when you start talking about wild card, Seattle is better than them. Seattle's a game better. Seattle's 5-4 in the conference. But what's going to kill Seattle is if they end up in a tie with the Rams.
Right.
But New Orleans is in bad shape because they're only 2-5 in the conference, and all the Minnesota is 6-3, Green Bay's 4-3. Looking at the Rams are 4-4, Seattle 5. So all of the teams they would be in contention with, even Tampa Bay have a 500 or better conference record. So New Orleans is behind the 8 ball. So it doesn't look like they're going to be able to squeak in at 8-9 and 9-8, whether it's a wild card or a division. They're going to have to really get hot.
Right.
And so I'm not certain they can do that. But so anyway, that's my observation there. What do you think about the top of it? About between Philly, Detroit, Dallas, and Frisco? Who you think going to be the number 1 seed?
Frisco's probably in the best position, I think. I don't know. This game with Dallas and Philly was obviously going to go a long way to determining that. And I would lean towards the 49ers at this point.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. I don't know what's going to happen. Philly and Dallas, man, it's hard to pick between the two of them for me.
Yeah.
And I think they're playing in Dallas.
They're playing in Dallas.
Yeah. Dallas play very well at home. They have been this year. But then they haven't played Philly at home, so.
Right.
I don't know, man. So what's your thoughts on? I'm between a lot of these things. I don't have any, firm favorites in a lot of these situations.
Oh, I don't either. I mean that's what makes it fun to prognosticate because it's nothing absolute. Right. But what I will say, one of the things I think that in terms of setting the tone, if Philly wins that game in Dallas, I'll start in that direction. If Philly wins, they effectively would be 2 games ahead they effectively be 3 games ahead of Dallas because they'd be 2 games ahead in the standings, and then they would have swept them. So Dallas can only finish ahead of Philly by finishing actually a game ahead. And after that game, it'll only be 4 games left. So that's number one. The other thing that does, if Philly wins that game, it keeps them at least a game ahead of Frisco. And then the last thing with that, Philly's closing schedule, they play the 6-6 Seahawks, the 4-8 Giants, the 3-10 Cardinals, and then they play the 4-8 Giants again.
Right.
So, now again, anything can happen, as we know. And the Cardinals just went in and beat Pittsburgh on the road.
That's right.
But if you assume that a team like Philly would take care of business against
those 3 other than Dallas. Man.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If they
beat Dallas, then they should sweep all of them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They beat Dallas, they're probably gonna get that 1 seed.
Yeah, probably so.
And but if Dallas wins, Frisco and Frisco keeps winning, then Frisco becomes the top seed because one, they would have a better conference record than both Dallas and Philadelphia. And the bigger thing is that they beat them both. So that's the first tiebreaker. If you beat both of the teams you're in a tie with. And if Dallas wins this game, all 3 of them would be 10-3, but Frisco would have beaten both of them head up. And so they would control it. So right now, the only team that controls its own destiny is Philadelphia.
Right.
Frisco needs a little help, and Dallas needs some help.
Philly just have to sweep the table.
Yeah, Philly runs the table. They the number 1 seed.
Right, and like you said, this game Sunday should determine whether or not they.
I think it will. I really do. I really think.
I can't see them losing in the other games.
Yeah, I can't either. I think they got hit in the mouth. They definitely got out coached, outplayed.
Right. Out everything.
Yeah, and I think they, So now the team I haven't mentioned, yet is Detroit, and they're very interesting because Detroit is only a game back of Philly,
Right.
and they're 6-2 in the conference, and so they're. Let me look at their schedule. Let's see if I can find it here. It's not an easy schedule, and given how they've been playing recently, the Bears should have beat them. Remember that, and they got too conservative at the end, and then Green Bay went in and beat them on their home field, and then they barely held on against the Saints. So I don't know if that's who they are, but just based on their record, they play where's that? They play the Bears this weekend in Chicago.
That's always a battle.
It's always a battle. Chicago's been playing much better.
Right.
Then they host the Broncos, who are competitive.
Right.
Then they play at Minnesota.
That's a battle.
And you just said Justin Jefferson is coming back, so he'll,
Right.
Then they play at Dallas.
Yeah.
And then they host Minnesota. So when you look at this schedule, it's not an impossibility, but it's unlikely they're going to get enough wins out of this schedule to pass Philly and or Frisco.
Right. I think
And
so,
of course, them and Dallas play head up. So, but I thought I'd throw that out there. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is San Francisco. Something tells me they're going to have a surprise coming because they looked so unbeatable when they beat Dallas early in the year. Then they got some injuries and they lost 3 in a row. And then they spanked Philly.
Right.
And so they're clearly going to be favored in every game they play. But, this is not necessarily, you never know. I mean, maybe it's wishful thinking.
Right.
But they play Seattle. They just beat Seattle a few weeks ago.
Right.
But you never know. I mean, a division game, Seattle's fighting for its life. Maybe Frisco is a little flat.
Right. Any given Sunday.
Any given Sunday. So they play Seattle. They play at Arizona, who they should beat. But then they host the Ravens, and that's the game I think that...
That's the game,
that's the game right there. That's going to be on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Then,
it could almost be a Super Bowl preview.
Right, Super Bowl preview. You hit it. And then they play at Washington, so I don't think that's a problem. But then here's the game that's going to be interesting. The Rams. The Rams are playing a lot better football.
Well. They are playing.
They play a lot better, and they usually play. They play very close games, and it would not surprise me,
Somebody knock them off.
Yeah, I mean, I could actually see a couple of losses here that people may not be looking at.
Right.
And then last thing I heard, Frisco had 4 injuries from this Philly game, 2 starters and 2 key special. Offensive lineman might miss this game. Burford. They mentioned Armstead might be out. Hufanga didn't play in that game. He's out for the year. And then I think there's a couple of other guys that they mentioned. So they're kind of licking their wounds a little bit.
Yeah, that's what got them in trouble the first 3 games. They had
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But the key thing in those first 3 games was that Deebo didn't play.
And Trent Williams.
But the 9 games that Deebo played in this year, they won.
And Trent Williams.
So, as long as they had those 2 guys, we'll see what happens.
Because when you see a lot of what they do to the left side, that's because of Trent Williams.
That's right.
It's like he's the MVP. But yeah, they both missed us. Yeah, they both missed the games together. So
right. Okay.
Yeah. So
we'll see what happens.
Yeah. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go out on a limb. Not that I need to. I think Philly's going to hold on to that top seed.
Yeah.
I think Frisco's going to get the 2 seed. Detroit will get the 3 seed, and then of course whoever comes out of the South. And then in terms of teams making the playoffs, because it's a crapshoot.
Oh man, yeah.
The way Green Bay and the Rams are playing right now,
I like Green Bay's chances.
I think I got to lean to them. And then I think I'm going to have to look at Minnesota if they can get anything out of Dobbs down the stretch.
Yeah, he can play like he did the first couple of games.
Yeah, but if Dobbs can keep playing like he's played most of the season, and Jefferson's coming back, that's who I see. I just think it's going to be tough for Seattle.
Oh yeah, I think so too.
They've lost 3 in a row. They were looking good there for a second.
They were.
And then they just and.
Yeah, I don't think they come back from where they are now.
But if they're going to come back, they're going to have to upset San Francisco, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
If they can do that, then they'll be back in the mix.
They got a good shot.
Yeah.
Because you look at them entirely different. They could be San Francisco.
Yeah. So yeah, man.
It's possible.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Do you see anything out of Tampa Bay, who's a game back in both the division and the wild card?
Man, that division's so lousy. You never know.
Well, they have a shot at the division because
That's what I'm saying. You never know what
Atlanta's 3-0 and Tampa Bay's 2-1 in the division, so they're the top two.
Yeah,
so
they got a shot.
Yeah, and both of them got 3 more games in the division. So
right.
Matter of fact, Carolina doesn't matter, but the 3 teams that are in the mix all have 3 more division games.
Right.
And that's kind of rare this time of year. So they're going to be playing each other.
Yeah, they're going to be knocking each other
down the stretch now.
That's true.
So,
I guess they're all hoping they got a game against Carolina.
Yeah, they probably do, I'm assuming.
They probably do, right? Yeah. Better take a turn beating them up.
And I know it's a little early, and if you don't want to throw one out, you got it. What do you think? I'm going Philly, Frisco, as I said, Detroit. I'm gonna stick with Atlanta, of course, Dallas, Minnesota. And Green Bay. Oh no, you know what? I threw Minnesota in there. Let me step back. I probably would have to go with Green Bay and the Rams over Minnesota. I forgot about Dallas. Is they don't feel like a wild card team, but they would be a wild card.
You're right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you.
So we kind of, and then I think as the playoffs are going, Dallas would play at Atlanta. They would win that game. They being Dallas. And then Detroit would have to go. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm skipping the other teams again. Assuming that the Rams and Green Bay would be the 6 and 7 seed, so they would end up playing against Detroit and San Francisco. I think the team that plays Detroit got a chance to beat them.
I would agree with that.
Because Detroit's the defense, they start off the year with good D, but they've been getting up a lot of points.
They have.
The last 5 or 6 weeks.
And the offense hasn't really been outstanding either, really. Like even the game that they just won, they had a short field a couple times.
Right. So I think where I'm going with this is it'll end up being Dallas and Philly in the semis, and it'll likely be the Niners and whoever I just said might upset Detroit. But let me step back because I forgot the NFL. I still think they do the lowest remaining seed and the highest remaining seed. Is that right? Because if that happens, if a 6 or 7 seed beats Detroit, that's who will play Philly. Actually.
Right.
And then Dallas would go and play San Francisco. So I forgot about that. I don't think they went back to the old format. I'll have to check that when we get back on the air by the time. But I think they still do the lowest remaining seed plays the highest remaining seed.
Oh, okay.
I think that's how it goes now. So again, if one of those 6 or 7 seeds upset somebody, they would actually play Philly. And then that would make Dallas go play San Francisco.
Right.
So, okay. So do you see Philly beating Frisco in a rematch?
I think they can.
Yeah.
I think they can. Yeah. They'll be more in their game, I would hope. Yeah. And they might get this guy Goddard back in the next couple of weeks too.
Yeah.
Tight end. And so, I think they had a chance. That game kind of got away from them,
Yeah.
We talked earlier how you can't play a team like 49ers and kick field goals. Like you get them down like that, you have to score touchdowns. And if they had done that, it might have been a whole different story.
Yeah, because they dominated the first quarter. They held Frisco to -7 yards, 2 3-and-outs.
That's right. And then, like you said earlier, they had opportunities to get back in the game, they had stupid penalties and stuff like that. Line up offside. That just kind of stuff just drives me up the wall. I don't understand how
I'm with you, man.
any professional football player can line up offside.
I don't
see
either.
what the ball is. That should never happen. That pisses me off to no end. And it takes me back to that damn playoff game in Mahomes' first.
Against New England.
I'll never forget that game. I was so pissed off when that happened.
Stopped him on fourth down, and then they lined up offside.
He intercepted him.
Oh, that's right.
It was nullified because this jerk was lined up offside. So-called all-pro linebacker. I said, goodness gracious.
Well, to your point, that's what happened with Josh Sweat when the score was still 6-0.
Yeah.
The Philly had stopped him on third down at the 5-yard line, and then the next play scored a touchdown. Yeah, he sure did. He did do it again. Though the second time he jumped offside.
Yeah, he jumped offside. So that happens.
He jumped. He didn't line up offside.
You can't see where the damn ball is. That's just stupid. I don't get that. I do not get it. Yeah. That kind of stuff would be crazy if I was a coach, man. I'd be firing guys left and right.
But I will say right now, man, given how San Francisco's played when they're fully healthy and the way they spanked Dallas and Philly, they have to be the team to beat. But I do think that both Philly and Dallas are very capable of beating anybody, including them. And my last ad with Frisco, I actually believe Dallas is the one. If they play them in the playoffs, I think something tells me Dallas is going to play a lot better than they played the last couple of years. They just look like a different team.
I think so too.
And I think it'll be a really good game.
Right.
An exciting game. One of them 34-31 games. I think it'll be fun to watch.
Right.
Because I think Dallas is going to open it up and not be so conservative.
I think so too.
And so that would be interesting to watch. So. All right, man. Well, I'm glad we're getting ready to launch our 2024 with a little prognostication, and of course, we're gonna get a chance to really get into this NFL season as we get closer to the playoffs.
Right.
And then of course the Super Bowl. So, you got any other comments or anything you want to add before we terminate this relaunch?
No, nothing on the football realm.
Mm-hmm.
I would just mention what we talked about a little earlier about Tiger Woods. My man is back, and it's just so good to see him play this weekend. And he looked good physically. And the key thing is he was able to walk for 4 days without limping and drag his legs and stuff. He was rusty. That was about it. But to shoot even Paul after 8 months of not playing, it's not a bad way to start.
Yeah.
And I look forward to good things for him coming in the future. He can stay healthy. It was just good to see him again. Got me watching golf again, anyway.
Well, he's a different athlete, man, and because he believes he should win every time he steps out there. If he's healthy, even at 48, I could see him with a couple more majors under his belt. I really do.
I do too. And I trust him because he says, and seeing the way he is. He says if he didn't think he could win, he wouldn't play.
And I believe that with him.
I believe it too. He said if he gets to that point, he's going to walk away, And he's certainly not there yet. And look at him, man. You wouldn't think he was 48. This kid is always in super shape, man. So, but other than that, I wish him well. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
these games coming up.
Say that again.
We'll see what happens. These games coming up this week.
Yeah, it's some really key games, but I guess it's a lot of key games now because now you're there with they have so many playoff implications.
Right. Everything's crunch time now.
Yeah, it's really crunch time, and so there's no really margin for error for these teams. Whether you're trying to get a better seed or get into playoffs, you can't be spitting the bit right now.
That's true.
I don't care who you are.
Right.
So it's going to be real interesting. So, yeah, man. I since you added Tiger, this is totally unrelated, and so don't hit me upside the head. But I don't know if you saw who got in the Hall of Fame by the Veterans. Well, they don't call it the Veterans Committee.
I thought to mention that to you, Jim.
Yeah. I did a little post on my Hall of Fame and Justice site just a few days ago, and I did mention that I thought if anybody got in, it was going to be Leyland.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah, we made it. Good for him, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't really get into that.
I understand, man. I understand. My thing was, that I also wrote about Gaston and Bill White.
I was just gonna say with Cito,
And Cito, I talked about how he never got the kudos for being cerebral beyond winning.
That's right.
And of everybody on that, there were 4. I think there was Davy Johnson, Jim Leyland, Lou Piniella, and Cito Gaston on that ballot.
Right. And
He's the only one of the group that won 2 world championships. That's
right,
number 1.
That's right. And he got at least considered.
And Piniella and Davy Johnson only had 1 pennant.
Right.
Cito had 2. So I'm just saying, and Leyland had 3, and Leyland managed twice as long as Cito. It just...
Right, it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
And this is the first time Gaston got on a ballot, which is a problem for me.
I know.
And so anyway, I didn't mean to get in all that. This was
it never ends, man. Never ends, brother.
So I guess I'll say this: I just don't think Cito gets, just because he didn't manage 30 years.
Right.
The guys managed 30. I mean, that's what you just saw with Leyland. He got 3 pennants, 1 world title, managing 25, 26, whatever it was he managed.
Right.
So Cito Gaston managed 12 years, and he wins 2 world titles. I don't know why.
Right.
It's just
Jim Leyland like about 20 games over 500, something like that.
so
in his career, he's in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, I guess
Yogi should get in the Hall of Fame as a manager. So ahead of him.
Yeah. Well, baseball doesn't do that, so
I know.
they don't have that separate like basketball does. Well, one thing, Leyland got in the Hall of Fame before Barry Bonds, somebody he managed.
That's right. That's right.
Whoa, man. Anyway. Let me quit digressing. I'm going down a rabbit hole now.
All right, brother.
All right, man. So keep holding up things in your neck of the woods, and I'm looking forward to getting back on the air on a regular basis in 2024. And tackling not only the issues in sports, but as we generally do, something outside of the sports realm.
Absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to doing that. So, hey, man, hang in there. Enjoy the holidays.
You too.
All right, and we'll do this again likely early 2024.
Sounds good.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.